Have you ever met someone who just gets it? They don't try too hard, they don't act like a genius, but somehow they always seem one step ahead. Here's the strange part: most of the time, they don't even realize they're doing anything special. There are certain habits, certain tiny behaviors, that psychologists have linked again and again to higher intelligence and deeper self awareness. And chances are you already do at least three of them without knowing it. We're diving into PS psychology, and specifically into the quiet, invisible habits that separate deep thinkers from everyone else. This isn't about IQ scores or diplomas. This is about the small, everyday things. The way someone talks to themselves, the way they handle being wrong, even the way they sit with boredom. We're going to walk through 19 of these subtle signs, one at a time, backed by real psychological research. Some of these might surprise you. Some might describe you perfectly. The first sign is simple. They ask why more than most people. When something happens, smart people don't just accept it and move on. A part of their brain automatically pokes at it, digs a little deeper, wonders what's really going on underneath. Psychologists call this trait need for cognition, basically, an inner hunger to understand things, not just experience them. If you've ever caught yourself Googling something at 1 a.m. just because a random thought wouldn't leave you alone, that's this exact trait showing up in real life. Here's one that surprises a lot of people. Truly intelligent people are often quick to say, I don't know. It sounds like weakness, right? But it's actually the opposite. Saying, I don't know, requires confidence. The kind of confidence that isn't threatened by admitting a gap in knowledge. Less self aware people tend to fake certainty because uncertainty feels dangerous to their ego. But someone comfortable with their own mind doesn't need to pretend. They'd rather stay curious than look impressive. Do you talk to yourself sometimes? Out loud, mid task, working through a problem like you're narrating your own thoughts? Good news, that's not a weird habit. It's actually linked to sharper thinking. Researchers have found that self talk helps people organize their thoughts, focus their attention, and even solve problems faster. Your brain is basically using your own voice as a tool to think more clearly. So, next time someone catches you muttering to yourself over a decision, you can tell them it's basically a productivity hack. Next up, smart people get bored fast, especially with things that don't challenge them. Repetitive tasks, mindless small talk, shows with no depth, their brain just checks out. This isn't rudeness. It's because a highly active mind needs stimulation to stay engaged. When there's nothing new to chew on mentally, attention drifts almost automatically. If you've ever zoned out during a conversation that felt like it was going nowhere, your brain wasn't being lazy. It was simply waiting for something worth paying attention to. This next one feels almost backwards, but it's one of the most well documented psychological patterns out there. The smarter someone actually is, the more likely they are to doubt themselves. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with less knowledge in an area often feel overly confident because they don't know what they don't know. But people who understand a topic deeply also understand how much more there is to learn. So instead of overconfidence, they carry a quiet, nagging sense of, maybe I'm missing something. That self doubt isn't a flaw. It's actually a sign of depth. Ever notice how your best ideas seem to show up right before bed? There's a reason for that. A lot of deep thinkers are natural night owls. Studies have linked later sleep patterns with higher analytical thinking. At night, the world quiets down, fewer distractions, fewer interruptions, and the mind finally gets space to wander freely. That quiet stretch before sleep becomes prime time for problem solving, creative sparks, and those random, wait, that's actually genius thoughts. Look around. Is your desk a little messy right now? Don't stress about it. Research from the University of Minnesota found that people who work in slightly disorganized spaces tend to think more creatively. A tidy desk encourages convention and following the rules. A messy one encourages new, unconventional thinking. So that pile of papers isn't a red flag. it might actually be a sign your brain is in creative mode. Here's a trait that quietly says a lot about someone. They genuinely enjoy being alone. Not in a lonely, isolated way, but in a peaceful, recharging way. Deep thinkers often need solitude to actually process everything swirling in their heads. Psychologist Hans Eysink's research on introversion showed that people who lean this way often find social interaction more draining and alone time more restorative. If a quiet evening with your own thoughts sounds appealing rather than sad, that's not antisocial. That's self awareness. This one might make you laugh a little. Some of the most capable, intelligent people are also world class procrastinators, but specifically on creative tasks. Studies have actually shown that delaying certain tasks gives the subconscious mind time to keep working on the problem in the background. So that essay you kept putting off until the night before, your brain wasn't slacking. It was quietly simmering ideas the whole time, waiting for the right moment to release them. Do you enjoy dark, dry, or a little bit twisted humor? Turns out that's linked to intelligence too. A study out of Austria found that people who understood and enjoyed darker humor scored higher on both verbal and nonverbal intelligence tests. Dark humor requires your brain to hold two conflicting ideas at once. Something is serious and something is funny, and process both simultaneously. That mental juggling act is more sophisticated than it looks. Some people talk a lot in social situations. Others sit back, watch, and absorb everything happening around them. Psychologically, this second group tends to be highly perceptive. They're not being shy, they're gathering information, reading body language, tone, tiny shifts in mood. This quiet observation is actually a form of emotional intelligence, picking up on things that a purely talkative mind might completely miss. Here's a simple but powerful one. They write things down, not just to-do lists, but thoughts, ideas, feelings, half-formed plans. Journaling has been shown to improve memory, reduce anxiety, and increase self-awareness. Getting a thought out of your head and onto paper forces you to organize it, and organized thoughts are the foundation of clear thinking. If you've ever felt calmer after writing something out, that's your brain thanking you for the clarity. Notice how genuinely curious people tend to ask more questions than they give opinions. That's intentional, even if it feels natural to them. Asking questions keeps the mind in learning mode instead of defending mode. Instead of trying to be right, they're trying to understand. It's a small shift, but it completely changes how a conversation and a mind grows over time. Being able to say I was wrong without spiraling into shame is rarer than you'd think, and it's a strong marker of emotional maturity, which is deeply tied to intelligence. People who are secure in their own thinking don't see being wrong as an attack on who they are. They see it as an update, just new information replacing old information. No drama required. Here's a subtle one. They don't chase constant approval. Sure, everyone likes recognition, but deeply self-aware people don't build their entire sense of worth around it. Their validation comes from inside, from knowing they did something well, rather than needing everyone else to confirm it first. That kind of quiet self-trust takes real emotional groundwork to build. This next trait is almost like a superpower, connecting random, unrelated pieces of information into one bigger idea. Psychologists call this associative thinking, and it's strongly linked to creativity and high-level problem solving. It's why some people can hear one random fact and instantly connect it to something completely different they learned years ago. Their brain isn't storing information in isolated boxes. It's storing it in a web, everything linked to everything else. Here's a mindset shift that quietly shapes long-term success: valuing time over money. Deep thinkers tend to weigh decisions by asking, is this worth my time? Not just, is this worth my money? This ties directly into delayed gratification, the same trait famously studied in the marshmallow experiment, where kids who could wait for a bigger reward later tended to have better life outcomes down the road. Time, not money, becomes the real currency they protect. And then there's the classic 3 a.m. overthinking spiral. Lying in bed, brain suddenly wide awake, replaying old conversations or planning things that don't even need planning yet. It's frustrating, but it's also common among people with highly active minds. During the day, there's too much noise to notice all this mental activity. At night, in the silence, it all rises to the surface at once. Deep thinkers tend to avoid small talk, not because they're rude, but because small talk simply doesn't feed their mind. They'd rather talk about ideas, meaning, emotions, plans, real conversation, not just weather updates. Psychologist Robin Dunbar's research on conversation found that deeper discussions actually build stronger social bonds than surface level chit chat. So, if you've ever redirected a conversation towards something more interesting, that instinct makes complete sense. Let's quickly recap everything we've covered: asking why, admitting I don't know, talking to themselves, getting bored easily, doubting themselves more than expected, staying up late, working in a slightly messy space, enjoying solitude, procrastinating on creative work, loving dark humor, observing more than talking, journaling their thoughts, asking questions instead of giving opinions, owning their mistakes, not chasing approval, connecting random ideas, valuing time over money, overthinking at night, and preferring deep conversations over small talk. 19 quiet habits, and most people walking around with them have no idea how meaningful they actually are. So here's the real takeaway: intelligence isn't about trophies, test scores, or sounding smart in a room. It's built from small, consistent habits: curiosity, honesty, self reflection, patience. And the beautiful part is, these aren't fixed traits you're either born with or without. You can build them. Ask more questions today. Sit with a mistake without spiraling. Write one honest thought down tonight. Small steps, repeated daily, quietly shape a sharper, more self aware mind over time. If you saw yourself in even a few of these habits, let me know which one hit closest to home in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And if this video gave you a new way to see yourself, hit subscribe because we're covering psychology topics like this every single week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.